Welcome, welcome, family, to the Empower Hour. I am Alquamar,
I'm Hanifa.
and
Computer is freezing.
and we are coming to you live, as we always do, each and every Monday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Zoom via Facebook. Tonight's discussion is going to be quite the interesting one. We have back with us. She is no stranger to you guys. If you guys tune in with us each week, Miss Oni. Oni is on with us again this evening. Hey, Oni.
Peace and love, everybody. So good to be here again.
And this evening, we have a very special new guest to the program, Miss Tanisha.
Hi, thank you so much for welcoming me. Thank you so much for having me. This is a great honor. I was like, oh my God, thank you, Hanifa.
That's Hanifa's home girl.
You're
I love
welcome.
it. I love it.
Yeah, so we definitely needed some help to tackle this controversial topic of discussion this evening, which is infidelity. Should I stay or should I leave? So this should be very interesting. And as always, family, we ask that you please share the stream, um, invite other people in to the discussion. Post your comments, post your questions. You know, we definitely will have time to get to the stream and get some of your questions and comments and statements out. So don't be shy. Don't be shy. Hanifa, how you feeling?
I am well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
I am hoping that my computer does not freeze because it just did something real robotic just now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
otherwise, I am here. I am blessed. I am breathing. I am ready. Let's do this.
So far, so good. So far, so good. Okay, infidelity, family. Let's jump right on in. All right. What anybody can start us. What should I stay or should I go? I'm a hoe. I always like to hold my thoughts, till until I hear from the rest of you guys on topics such as this.
So
You be
for those
cheating.
that's just tuning in, just to kind of like put it in context. So we were discussing how when we talk about so many different struggles that we're having as a community, the breakdown in our family structures and so forth. And usually what is introduced into that conversation is, so you saying that I should endure struggle love, or are you saying that I should allow someone to cheat on me and just for the sake of keeping my family together? And so we wanted to talk about infidelity because there's a lot of judgment that goes around both ways. There's judgment mostly on people who stay, and it's usually towards women, not necessarily men. You're so dumb, you're stupid, why would she do that? If he did it once, he'll do it again. And so we wanted to just tackle the conversation. And I know I had a really brief conversation with Tanisha once via Messenger, and she had shared her thoughts and saying, I actually don't even think infidelity is, I don't want to say good enough. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but like, is solid enough maybe to break up a relationship or a marriage. And so that's kind of why I wanted to bring her on so we can have this conversation, because it's not an easy conversation to have, because we all have our own experiences and also our own biases. And so I just wanted to discuss it. And if you're a guy and you're in the comment section, we didn't exclude men on purpose. It was kind of like a last minute thing. And so you could throw your comments in there. You could comment. We can see you. So this is not necessarily us teaching or educating. It really is us having a conversation. So feel free to join if you are of the other gender. So I just wanted to put that into perspective. So it is infidelity a good enough reason to end a marriage? That's the question on the table. Who wants to tackle that?
Yeah, look
So
at
let me just share a let me just share a little bit of how I came to that conclusion. I have never experienced infidelity. So I'm not going off of like personal experience.
Mhm.
However, my husband and I did have a long separation of like 3 years.
Mhm.
And what I realized was I always thought, prior to that happening, that infidelity would probably be the only reason or the biggest reason something like that would happen. Like, oh, nothing else could break up a marriage. And then I realized that there's so many other things that could cause the breakdown of a family, and infidelity doesn't have to be it. I think where people need to, I guess, maybe draw the line and draw the boundary for them is you have to determine for yourself what is best for you and what's comfortable for you. Um, and don't go by society. I think there's a lot of fairy tale, rose colored, glasses kind of messaging that people get as to what marriage really is or long-term commit. I'm going to speak specifically of marriage because that's where I have experience of what marriage or a long-term commitment is. And we kind of have it in our minds like, hey, if you love someone, then you really can't cheat on them. And there's so much that goes into what would lead a person to do that. So in my mind, infidelity encompasses a whole host of things. Like for me, like someone with a gambling addiction going and taking all of the money out of the bank, like, is that a different kind of deceit than somebody having a physical relationship with somebody? I think it's a lot more complex than just she cheated on me or he cheated on me.
Points.
Yes, I think that's a good way to look at it. And I always think about this in terms of, it's levels to it. There's some conditions and some we talked about marriage versus a long-term commitment versus maybe you just been in it for a year before that thing shows up. And I think that matters in terms of the question on the table. Do you leave or do you stay? And then the other thing is deceit, right? I think when I think about infidelity and I think about cheating, the first thing comes to my mind is deceit. Like, okay, it might have been you cheating with a woman or a man outside of your relationship, but what does that look like in terms of your character across the board, right? Now, because I remember growing up hearing, if you lie, you'll steal. If you steal, you'll cheat. It's almost like those things go together, right? I don't know if it's really all that true, but I remember that's what comes to mind for me because it's a question of character, right? And I don't necessarily I will speak from experience, right? Not having been married, but been in long-term relationships and either been cheated on or have cheated. Right? I've been on both sides of those things. And I know when I was in either of those positions, I did not stay. I did not stay because of that event, though. In retrospect, what I learned is that in the case where I cheated, I was really finished with the relationship. I just didn't have the courage to say that.
Right.
So it opened me up to experience and explore something outside of the relationship where either way, I think it would hurt, right? If I said it to the person before I stepped out, it would hurt their feelings, right? Matters of the heart is serious, right? But I think that it came from me not being courageous enough to say, okay, I think this season is finished. I have an interest somewhere else. Love you, right? That doesn't stop. It's just going to change the way that I love you because I'm seeking something else, or there's something else that I'm desiring that I'm no longer getting, from this particular situation. So I guess what I'm saying is, for me, a matter of staying or leaving. It wasn't worth me really trying to fight through that. I don't know that I was in a position or felt that it was worth working through whatever that deceit or cheat was. Having been, now I'm in a relationship, and a beautiful relationship. And we got a little time in. So if it came up for either one of us at this point, at this stage of development in my life, I think I would have a different approach. But I think that's a testament to where I am in terms of my own growth. And, you know, me being very clear about what my commitment looks like, how I contribute that commitment to the relationship, and what my expectations are in terms of the commitment to me, you know, in the relationship. That was a lot.
I think no, it wasn't. It wasn't.
You know, I talk a lot.
A lot of people go into relationships. I know people who have gone into marriages as with infidelity being their deal breaker, meaning that that is the one reason they'll walk out. And then by the time, if that came about, their experience with marriage itself landed them somewhere completely different. And I think people talk like that because they really haven't experienced the level of commitment that would stop you from impulsively making a decision to just jump ship because this particular thing has happened, versus attempting to like work through it. I think experience, emotional intelligence, I think maturity, all of those things factor in. The longer you put in, the more you've invested in that relationship, right? You are going to, then you have some of those who've seen that their entire life, and this woman specifically, the idea is that all men do this.
Right.
And so they continue to subject themselves to situations that are unhealthy. So that's a whole different type of person. But what's on the table, I definitely know people have this Disney like this thing around marriage that's really unrealistic. And I am afraid for like some of the younger people right now. People are not getting married as young as they used to anymore, which I think is good, because when you listen to some of the 20-something-year-olds talk about these type of topics, it's like, I just need to live 20 more years and then come back to the table, or, have been married once or even twice. You know what I mean? The conversation sounds a little bit different, but I agree with you, Oni. It doesn't necessarily, it's not just about your experiences, but also just where you are at, like psychologically, I think, honestly, because the person that I am today, I probably, like Tanisha mentioned, like there are so many other things, right, that hurt, if not as deeply, probably more than infidelity. And whenever we talk about infidelity, we talk about it like that is the one thing that can mash up a marriage. And and you'd be like, no, because deceit shows up differently. It doesn't necessarily have to mean you're running around with somebody else. You know what I mean? There are people who break up marriages because they find out someone purchased property somewhere else, right? And had it for 13 years of their entire marriage. And it's like they can't get over that deceit. Like, how do you do that and hide that the entire time? The other part that I want to bring up too is that when you talk about like infidelity, one of the conversations, if you guys can help me out with this, that I still can't wrap my head around. There are people who will forgive the deceit as long as it did not produce a child.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what that is. I do not get it at all. So if you guys can, if you out, somebody want to speak on that, because everyone is like, you usually hear people say, yeah, but when they brought a child into it, that they took it to another level. And I was just like, well, it was already on that level. So what are we talking about really?
Well, that's interesting because, I always think about cheating like this. A lot of us think, the cheating starts when you actually have sex with somebody. Right. I'm under the belief system that anytime that you begin to interact with that person in the way that you would interact with me, that's cheating. if you, I mean, it's ridiculous to think that if you're with someone that they won't be attracted to another person. I mean, that's just, come on now. But what you do with that attraction, you know what I mean? If you know that someone is, we know, you know when somebody giving you the eye, or you know what you feel it inside and all of that kind of stuff, and you make a decision to act on that attraction. For me, that's when the cheating starts. It doesn't start once you go out on a date with them, or, you know, once you actually lay down and have sex. You know what I'm saying? Because again, if I'm supposed to be sharing this with you and we have made a commitment that it's just us two that are going to share this kind of energy and vibration. You understand what I mean? And that's not the same thing as having female friends. That's just your home girl. And that, you know the difference, right? And so for me, the cheating doesn't start just when there's a physical contact or anything. There's emotional cheating. You might not ever have sex with this woman or this man, but you giving them a lot of time and energy that you're supposed to be giving to your partner, right? And that's only because if we agree that we're exclusive, right? Now I think I see the young people coming up with all of these other adaptations for relationships. You know what I'm saying? To address this very thing that the monogamy is not something that they're interested in at this time. But I think it's almost like a prescription for the symptom. And you know, for the cheating, if we just deal with the cheating and the deceit part, and you mentioned, Hani, for people growing up and seeing that, you know, you see women, they just accept it, but then you also see young boys watching it happen and hearing over and over, that's just how men are, right? And they basically casting spells. And so, you know, you find young men following that suit, and you find young women following that suit without even thinking about, well, why are we doing this? What needs to be healed that we felt like we needed to be deceitful?
Right.
You know,
that's a good point that you brought up. And family, if you're just chiming in, we are talking about infidelity. Should I stay or go? Make sure you hit that the button on the stream so you can get our notifications when we go live each and every Monday at 8 p.m. Only you said something about if you guys have that commitment already, that commitment that it's just you two and no other additional parties that's going to be coming into this relationship. But I'm wondering how much are people thinking that they can be free to do other than because they didn't have that communication and that conversation up front. I recognize a lot of women in particular, they just automatically assume. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we maneuvering like we together. So we must be together. We never had the conversation. Never, you know, and then when boom, come up, you find out that, you know, he is not just you in your feelings. But did you even really have the full-fledged conversation to be able to lay it out on the table and have that understanding between you two? And I think that's another thing we do. We lack that communication.
Yeah, you find out you the side chick. You even know you the side chick.
Like, well, wait a minute.
You thought you was you was in it with them, and then you on the side for real.
Yeah.
You're not really, because you didn't get clear in the beginning. But to Hanifa's point, you know, there's a emotional maturity that makes you know, that motivates you to have that conversation in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, we're not going to be presumptuous. Yeah. We're going to get real clear about what it is. But, you know, again, that's just based on, you know, the individual and what it is that they really, what their standards are in terms of their own commitment. What are your expectations about the relationship in terms of commitment? Commitment can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
I'm going to speak on the energy people. Tanisha, I see you was trying to say something. So after you, I'll speak on that energy piece.
So, you know, you asked about having a child as a result of infidelity. I think that has a lot to do with the ego, and a child would stand publicly as a reminder that you were deceived in this way. Because the way how we as women are taught by our society to view infidelity, it's because you weren't doing something at home, or you weren't handling something. And so a child becomes the reminder, and it tells everyone. And I mean, how can you explain that you have a daughter that's 8 and he have a daughter that's 8.5?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to explain that?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where it comes in. And then it would be hard to deal with just being reminded. So, if somebody cheats on you and you guys work through it, I don't know, maybe it takes 6 months, maybe it takes a year, maybe it takes 2 years. But then okay, so then that's over, right? To some degree, if it goes that smoothly. But with a child now, you now have to work on, how do I be a step parent or a parent to this child that does not belong to us? Now, instead of every dollar that comes into the house being split in 4, it now has to be split in 5. And then I have to deal with this other lady and, all of the issues that she might bring. And so I think a lot of it is ego. I mean, that would be a challenge. And that's the same reason why a man wouldn't accept his wife bringing a child into a relationship.
Agreed. I completely agree with you because not only, even I was thinking the person that you were that the person who he cheated on, you also have to face, because there's a whole co-parenting situation going on there as well. So yeah, to put it like that, I guess. Yeah. But as Oni and Alkama was speaking, somebody brought up side piece, and I was just like, when you really get down to it, where we talk about levels to cheating, to infidelity, there's levels to it. It's so serious that there are wives who are side pieces in their own marriages. And I want to be clear on what I'm saying here, because that energy that you're talking about, Oni, where that person is connecting with somebody outside of you. When they want to be heard, that's who they're calling. When they want to be consoled, that's who they're calling. When they have, let me say, who they're calling first. They're going to tell you when they get home.
That's right.
When they have good news, that's who they're calling, right? You are a side piece in your own marriage. As crazy as that sounds, because people, when you only see cheating as a physical act, you're going to miss a whole lot of cues. The fact that somebody is already cheating on you. You know what I'm saying? Because you're looking at, well, there was no penetration, there was no oral sex, but when you're talking about on an energetic level, you're talking about intimacy. That person is sharing intimacy with someone else. Okay, there are people out there who are married to people who is not really who they love. The person who they love is in another relationship, and they marry you because they can't get them.
That's real.
Like, that's real. So when and I know I'm probably going in a different direction, but
no,
I just wanted to put that on the table that sometimes there are people who are married and they're the side pieces. So it really, when you're talking about infidelity and whether someone should leave or stay, I think there's a lot of unpacking that has to happen with that first. You know what I'm saying? Because there's levels to it. There's someone who can say, wait a minute, they can find text messages and say, you got fired from your job, and I didn't find out a week later. You told her that same day, right? That woman may not be able to get over that. You get what I'm saying? You sharing real intimate details that person that you're with don't even know about. And then find out maybe through email or whatever. That might be too tough for them to get over. So it's not just the physical act that we're talking about when we say infidelity, whether we stay or go. And all of us, we can our temperament, like how we handle stuff is different. What Alkama can handle, and I probably can't.
That's right.
So like,
because I got stories
for you.
Huh? I said, yeah, because I got stories under my notch, as you know, as you very well know. But look, and I'm proud of myself too for a lot of the ways in which I've handled situations, especially because, just even going back to that baby scenario, I was in a long-term relationship, on and off. I mean, for years. And one of our off times, he had a baby, and I didn't know about. Until we got back on the on scenario, and I'm like, whoa, when did this happen? In the meantime, and in between time, and it is difficult. It is a challenge. It does take some work around your ego to accept, because it is a lot. So I think Tanisha broke it down quite eloquently, that, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot to consume for a woman to have that reminder constantly.
Oh, man.
You know, and then, you know, and having to remind yourself that this child is innocent in every way, shape, or form, who needs love from everywhere, including from me.
Yes.
And so, and having to, you know what I'm saying? But I think over time, it did get better. You know, it became more acceptable. But I think that, and I don't know, it's just for me, is this that underlying idea that this is really reality for me, kind of never dissipated. It got better, but it never went away, you know? So needless to say, we're not together anymore this day, but it was a challenge. We tried to work through it. And the breakup didn't come from that scenario either. It was just in between it all. It was rough. It was rough to kind of come to grips with that situation. But I want to know, with all the things that you mentioned, and then we're gonna come to the stream, because I see Kelly had a mention too, and some other people had some good points. All the things that you just mentioned, Hanifa, are those reasons to leave though? What do you think?
I think it varies from person to person. I really do. And I think that this is why, even before we get into like marriages and relationships, I wish that and not just wish, but it's like, even with me, I have boys, but I really think people need to really teach young people, children, how to really study themselves and understand themselves and make decisions based on that knowledge of self. We go into relationships and we don't really know ourselves. So when you ask that question, it's like, what can you handle? And most of the times we don't even know what we can handle until we experience in some stuff, to be honest. That's just a fact. Like, we could talk big all we want, okay?
Yeah.
And when that thing come knocking on your door and you're like, who is it? You know what I'm saying? And you open your door. Well, come in and have a seat. You know what I mean? You're like, never. I would never. And you know that comes back to you, right? Like, girl, you remember when you were going on and on about how you would never, you know, and then you start dealing with your own inner shame and embarrassment, and you think about all the friends you don't talk smack to. You know, like, now Al Commando, he cheated on me. Now I'm about to roll up an everlasting life holding his hands. Can we find another vegan store to go to? You know, you guys want to relocate. You want to relocate because everybody know it happened. So one of the things that I do realize too, it depends on the degree of the cheating. When I say that, I mean, like, if it was a public thing, oh boy,
it's hard.
The likelihood of people staying, unless they're like the Hillary Clintons of this society or something, they're probably not staying. When it's really that public and there's like a lot of embarrassment and shame there, even if they stay just for that moment to get through the whole publicity piece, on the other side of it, they usually leave. It's just too public, and that's just a lot. And actually, I don't even mind that, because I'm just like, your self-care over everything. Okay, over everything. Like, if that person is a public figure, it's like, okay, we gonna get through this public, please. But sweetie, I want a divorce as soon as the dust settles, because now I need to go take care of myself. So it really depends on the person. You have to know yourself. Like, don't pretend for the sake of you trying to show up as this good wife or husband, because here's what's happening. You're internalizing that stress. Okay, and so here comes this person who's cheated on you, and they outlive you because you carrying that thing and developing tumors and sickness in your body, because really and truly you can't handle it, but you feel like you have to pretend to handle it, whether it's for the sake of the children, the relationship, the family, the community. I don't subscribe to that. If you guys need to go get counseling for you to start to unpack that, and perhaps on the other side of that, you realize that I'm willing to give this another try, then that's fine. Yeah. But I'm just not for the performative piece of it. You know what I'm saying? Just for the sake of staying married. Yeah, because that's a recipe for sickness, and I don't advocate for that.
That's right.
I think by the time, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tanisha.
I think by the time it gets public and everyone knows, I don't believe that that's the first time that it's happening. I think with every, like, you know, subsequent things, you get more and more, you know, bold. If there's like multiple, and a lot of times it's like multiple, you know, because if it's like a one-time kind of thing, people try to keep those contained, you know. But if you're known for just being, you know, just notoriously like being a cheater, then that's when it becomes public, you know. I know lots of people who have stayed, and for whatever a lot of times it's the ego. And I know I don't know, maybe 30, 40 years ago, people stayed for financial reasons.
Yeah.
Because that was the way. That's just kind of what it was.
Survival.
You know? Yeah. That is actually my family story. When I tell people how many children my father have, how many children my parents had together, and just kind of what that did, and just kind of how we function, it's unreal to a lot of people. But I realized that my mother stayed for as long as she did for financial reasons, you know. And then when other things, like on top of all of the infidelity, you know, when the physical and mental and emotional abuse got to be too much, then she left, you know. But at the same time, I think even when that happens, there's still, and I think this is what people are afraid of when there's another child, because there's always a connection between that man and that woman. They have someone that's walking around the planet that connects those two people together. Yep. Because most of the time, technically, you know, if you and I had sex and then we're not together no more, you probably don't even make it to the call sheet of people who were, that could be registered as, hey, we had something.
Right.
But a child kind of connects those two people together. And so that to me takes it to a different level.
Well, let's go to the stream.
Yeah, I wanted to read some. Go ahead, Alkema, because I have some I want to.
Okay, let me just get Glenn's comment in early on. He said, life learns you, and you are taught along the way. You and your partner don't know their individual assignments, have dialogue, and do their work to do the work. We have to have them hard talks. Accommodate will help. Yes. He said he was also taught that lie, cheat, and steal. Jazir, is that what the one you wanted to comment?
No, but go ahead, because I wanted to comment on something that Kelly brings up a very good point.
Getting there. Jazir said there's a cause to every action in a relationship. So if you find cheating on your doorstep, it's time to investigate why you have attracted that energy. Getting to the root of why the other person cheated will reveal what you may need to calibrate within you. So leaving the relationship before discovering that means you will drag that undiagnosed underlying issue to the next relationship.
There's a lot in that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was a lot of points in that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you take that one. I'm for the lack of a better term, victim blaming in this, in that one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that when stuff like that is introduced, you should do some like self-reflecting on all of that, but not to the degree that had I been nicer, that person would not have cheated. Not to the degree of feeling inadequate, not to the degree of feeling less than because someone else made a decision, because cheating is a decision. That's right? And it is a choice. Someone decided, no matter what I do, someone decided to go and do something without my knowledge, behind of my back, right? If there's a conversation to be had and I am not living up to what your expectations were of a wife, let's have the conversation. Cheating is about the deceit, the decision to deceive another individual, period. Like, period. Now, you could say, some people be like, why not leave? And then that's a whole nother conversation, because I also don't believe that if somebody cheats, they don't love you. That's a whole nother conversation. Right. I was just telling some people earlier that men compartmentalize like bosses. If you don't understand that, I don't know what to tell you. Men compartmentalize way better than women, okay? That means that when that man is with you, he's with you. When that man is over there, that man is over there. There is no mixture. There is no open floor plan. No, we're going to go over here. When we're in the kitchen, we're going to close the door and do what we got to do in the kitchen. And when we leave the kitchen, we're going to close the door and go into the living room and do what we got to do in the living room. Men compartmentalize way differently than women could ever. So when you talk about checking yourself, here's this. Yeah, check yourself, do your self-assessing, get the counseling, self-care, all of that good stuff. But you don't have to sit in that relationship to do so and take a whooping, because you are under the impression that I need to improve myself so that this person could improve themselves. We're talking about adults here.
So that
I have a different.
Go ahead, Oni, go ahead.
Hanifa, I feel you 100%, because when she first was reading that, my mind straight went to the same thing you said, like, oh, that's not on the woman or whoever was cheated on. That's not on them. You can't say to me that you cheated because I wasn't anything. What you did has everything to do with you. But there is another thing that I heard as she continued to read it, and it was that for me, I believe everything that happens in my life is an opportunity for me to grow. Absolutely. Right? Mm-hmm. And so if I am in a situation and I've been cheated on, Hanifa, that's not on me. The person who made that decision, that ain't got nothing to do with me. But there is something that I am supposed to experience and get away from being in that situation. Now, I'm not going to take responsibility for you making a poor decision or a deceitful decision. That's not on me. But there's something, because we are in a relationship together. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's relationships for me are, you know, it's about relating. It's about growing together. It's about witnessing each other's growth. So I'm not going to be like, oh, no, that's just on you that you cheated. No, it's something for me, whether the person who cheated knows that it's something for me or not. I'm just in the habit of looking at those situations. You know, it's almost like when things are going really well, people be like, oh, praise God. Thank God. I'm so grateful. When things are not going so well, people forget to praise God. I'm so thankful. You understand? Because in whatever pain you're supposed to experience, or whatever shame or embarrassment, and through all of that, there's a wonderful, wonderful silver lining. Yeah. And I'm just in the habit of doing that. So I kind of understand where it was coming from. Yeah. Not that the cheating is my fault, but yes, let me self-reflect to see, how is this my situation? And right? I don't have, and let me see, and let me focus mostly on, let me focus through this pain and through this hurt. Let me focus on, what is this going to do to improve who I get to be? Yeah. Whether I stay with this person or whether I move on to another relationship, right? So, so essentially what I'm saying is, I understand that, but I'm looking at it from a perspective of opportunity to grow, just like I would every other thing, though.
Even if it's nothing more than just bearing witness to the signs of what to look out for next time.
That's right. Yes. It's something there for me, because we in it together. Nothing is going to happen in the relationship where it only happens to one person. Right. Everybody involved will get something from it. And so for me, again, when it happened to me, or when I did that to somebody else, I didn't have this same kind of understanding. Right. Right. It was nothing for me to try to figure out. I went self-checking. I did recognize, okay, well, that's done, you know, moving forward. Right. And then I got into another relationship, and then I learned that I was the side chick. Thought I was in the front. You know, I thought I was the wifey part. I wasn't nobody's wife, but I thought I was number one. And then I learned I was a side chick. I was like, I've never been a side chick before. What that look like? Guess what happened? I never didn't know. No, I don't know. I don't normally do second place. Not and know it. I ain't know. So Look,
You didn't like how that felt. You didn't like how that felt.
but look, I didn't like it. But you know, I felt more compassion and empathy for the sister who was supposedly number one. You know, the way I responded to it was a little shocking to me because of my heart went directly to, oh my God, you know what I'm saying? This girl must really be invested. And then when I looked at it, I was like, oh, we were really just kicking it. I think I was just probably wishful thinking, you know? So I was able to see that, you know, even for me, Alkamar, you mentioned earlier about having that essential conversation. That was a relationship that I didn't have that I didn't have that conversation about whether or not we were exclusive. So when everything hit the fan, I really didn't have no feet to stand on, really. Because we never talked about it. I never initiated that conversation. I just made the assumption, okay, we've been seeing each other for a year and a half or so. I guess this might be something. Ain't meet no family. You know what I'm saying? We really didn't. So when I look at it now, I'm like, oh yeah, I was a side chick.
But now you know those signs now. You know those signs. Yeah.
See, that's I'm trying to say my point in a long way, in that what the brother is saying about what you attracted to you. Had I not had that experience, then I probably wouldn't know when it comes now. That's the conversation I'm having after a month. So what are your thoughts? Not like just like that, but you know, go ahead, y'all. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let's get to Kelly.
Oh wait, I think Tanisha was trying to say something before we get to Kelly.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, you know, we can have all of the conversations that we want in the world, you know, with our partners, you know, and maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years in, you're married, something happens, you know, you don't know that you need to have another conversation about, are we supposed to be faithful? Is this what we're supposed to be doing? You know, like, I don't want to have that conversation every year. You know what I mean? You know, like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
But to me, it's, you know, cheating to me is like the end. It's not the beginning of anything. To me, it's like the impetus or the end of like something that's been breaking down within that person a lot of times for a long time, you know, and by the time we reach to the cheating part, all of the things have already happened, you know, all of the emotional things have already happened. It's just that's, you know, the final step, because there's a lot of disconnect and dishonesty by the time you get to saying, hey, I want to share myself on that emotional level with another person, even though I've already committed myself to do it with this person. You know, there's so much that's already happened. By the time you get to that point where, you know, you're sharing text messages, because that's usually how it starts out, you know, the light flirt. Once it goes there and it keeps going, you know, you're wrestling with yourself. You know.
Well, what about the whole serial cheaters though? There's people out here that they come into a relationship knowing that they going, you know, they not.
Yeah, again, because to me, I feel like there's a lot of dishonesty, just period. And I don't think that people are just wired to be maybe monogamous. That may not be the case for everybody. You know what I mean? Because I tell people,
wiring or is it self-discipline?
I don't know what it is. All I know, I tell people all the time, like, I could see, like, if I didn't have a lot to lose, like if infidelity wouldn't ruin and crush my entire family, you know, like, people are attracted to other people. People would love to be intimate with somebody else. Like, I mean, that I don't think that that's abnormal. I think that's quite normal.
You know, I think that it's what you said in the beginning about having that conversation. When I say having that conversation in the beginning of a relationship, it's actually setting the tone for the relationship. So no, the communication should be happening all the time. It doesn't always have to be about us being exclusive. But whatever is going on in your life, if you set a tone where you and your partner are already communicating, you know, well, I'm not going to say in general, but for me, I would say that having that conversation in the beginning, not just about being exclusive, but about your passion, about your ideas, about what relationship looks like, about family, about what are your goals, all of those kinds of things. You should be communicating with that if you're in a relationship with somebody, so that if you're already having open communication all the time and everybody's committed to that, you know, it's not just one person, everybody that agreed to be in the relationship, we communicating anyway already. So that if every 2 to 3 years, we need to come back to that one important question about, you know, are you still committed in the way that we agreed that we would do in the beginning, right? So that, and it's not easy to do, and I think I am saying it like, I'm saying it in a way where I'm kind of upscaling. I'm not saying it in a way where it's so easy and so cavalier. It's hard to do that, but that's the meat of the relationship. If you're not willing to work on being able to be, use your relationship as a place of refuge, where you can come and share that kind of thing with one another, it's not so hard to talk about that one thing, like it wouldn't be hard to talk about, you know, you bought a whole nother property, or you got $60,000 in an overseas account.
Unless the other person say something you really don't want to hear. 5 years.
How many times you've been in a relationship with anybody, not just man and woman, but anybody, and they tell you something you don't want to hear? I know I can say that happens to me often. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't necessarily want to hear. Nobody really wants to hear the not so good stuff. But then my commitment requires that I be honest, that I share what's really going on with me. That's part of that's part of how I do the commitment. So it's not easy to do that, but I think it's worth it, because like I said in the beginning, if I'm in a relationship with somebody else and they want to go outside of me, that's already painful for me. Because when I'm in a relationship with somebody, I want to be all that they need.
You can't be.
Now, listen, I want to be that. That doesn't mean that that's real life. You understand what I'm saying? I'm saying that I don't want him to have to go outside of me, really, right? So that's already painful enough if you have to do that. But it makes a difference if you say to me, this is what's going on with me. Not that I might not change nothing about who I am. I might continue to, you know, not be what you need from me or whatever the case, but it makes a difference that you respect me enough not to be deceitful, right? And then I got to find out later on that this is what's going on, where we've already set the tone of communication. It's my theory. It's the way that I lead my relationship. Mm-hmm. I haven't been in a situation with the person that I'm with right now where, you know, we've had that issue of fidelity. We haven't experienced that in this relationship.
I wonder if it hurts less.
Huh?
What?
I wonder if it hurts less if they tell you up front versus you finding out.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know that it hurts less, but the one thing that I'll be able to say, well, you know what? At least you respected me. At least you gave me the heads up. It's still going to hurt.
So wait, are we saying he, you know, comes into the relationship saying, hey, listen, you know, I like to dibble and dabble on the side, and that's what
No, I'm not saying that, because I don't like the shit. I don't like the shit. So if we had that first conversation and that's how he's coming, then I'm not her.
Gotcha.
No, I'm not sharing. I'm not saying I'm okay with sharing. If I had that conversation, you say, oh, you know, I don't really do monogamy. Okay, brother, so wonderful. You know, thank you for the dinner. I'm not interested. Right. Because I'll do monogamy. And I want my partner to do monogamy. We can have that conversation and they can still cheat, right? But what I'm saying is, only thing I can really do, and this goes back to that thing about blaming the victim. The only thing that I can really do is make sure that I'm doing what I said I was going to do as far as the commitment. I can't govern nobody else's life like that.
Right.
So I'm not suggesting that this is a foolproof situation. What I'm saying is, after having experienced these things, I realized that certain things can trying to ward that off, right? Certain things can kind of set the tone. And as women, we get to do that, right? We've been taught a lot that men lead, right? I said this before, they the head, but we the neck and the shoulders, right? So they ain't really doing nothing unless we say so. This is not to put men below women. It's just to say that we really do govern and set the tone for what's going to happen in the relationships. And we just have to be clever enough and in tune enough to be able to establish that in the beginning. So that if that does happen, you can always stand on that. Well, brother, you know, in the beginning, I told you I don't like sharing.
If
so
I could inject here, Oni.
Okay.
So I want to get to Kelly's point because I see the time going as well. But Alkema, you had made a mention as far as like, and I don't really like to talk about the whole polygamy versus monogamy that much because we live in a society that most people are programmed towards monogamy. So it's a very difficult conversation to have. Also, men also tend to assume that because I speak in understanding it and saying that I do not believe that we are all wired in that direction, men assume that somehow I'm open to polygamy. I am not. I'm just putting that out there if you're watching.
We might be open to polyandry.
I am not either. But
like, hey.
But Alkema has spoke to discipline, and I try to stay away from the idea of that because for me to tell someone who is not wired in that way or who is being honest and living in that full truth of, you know, I have never embraced monogamy. For me to say that they lack discipline, I try to stay away from that because it's like, do they lack discipline or do they just choose not to like you know, subscribe to something that is anti their nature? Like I try not to get into that because y'all know, Alkema, you know, people that know me close enough know that I just don't believe it's for everyone. But however, what Oni spoke to is what I wanted to touch on is that if you are wired like that, or you're like, I am for monogamy, both people, someone who is not should not be dating someone who is for monogamy. They should not, right. Because that in itself is robbing that person of making that decision to say, I don't want to be with a polygamist, right? And so that still goes back to deceit as well, because you're not being completely honest with each other. And as I'm listening, I'm coming to Kelly right now, as I'm listening to the conversation, and this comes up every time I'm in these conversations, we are dishonest in relationships. And we don't want to own it. We talk a lot about being honest with each other, but here's the thing. Only you could tell me, and this is just an example, only you could say, Hanifa, you need to be honest all you want. If you don't provide a safe space for that honesty, I will not be honest with you. So it goes both ways. We talk about the honesty we want specifically as women, right? Specifically as women, but we don't even want men to tell us that we gain a whole lot of weight. We don't even want to hear that. We don't want to hear like, I don't think that hairstyle look nice on you, but if you want to rock it, we don't even want to have those conversations. And the reason why we're dishonest in relationships is because we have this sense of ownership that should not exist in relationships. It shouldn't exist in our parenting, none of that. But that's the society we live in. That's the Western way of thinking, very black and white. I own you. You know what I mean? So getting away from that ownership, it's mutual respect. Like Tanisha just said, if I didn't respect my situation that I'm in, my marriage, right? My children, my family, if I didn't have the idea that if I do this, this is really going to break down this entire fact. Like, it's respect. It is honor and it is respect. That is all it boils down to. It is not necessarily nature. And we need to get away from that to where it's like, well, somebody who is not monogamous, you know, then, you know, I'm just like, no, it's respect. I am not going to hurt Alkema because I love and respect Alkema. That's what it boils down to. You know what I'm saying? And let me just say this, wait, Alkema, it doesn't mean that if I want to be clear on this. It doesn't mean that if I mess up and I do something that's human, right? And it hurts you, it doesn't mean I don't love you. Yes. And it doesn't mean I love you any less. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. But I want to get to Kelly's point real quick, because Kelly talked about like being married. And she said one of the things that she thought about doing is like staying in the relationship because she refused to let the other woman win.
Oh,
That's the thing.
She already
that's that
won.
lemonade. That's the lemonade from Beyonce. Y'all, so she made a whole hour, 2-3 hours movie because she went.
That's what it was about.
You know, Lemonade, Beyonce.
Yeah, I know. I ain't really that into Beyonce, but I know that the album.
Me
Yes.
neither. But the Lemonade was about her cheating, and then she flipped that
Yes.
whole thing. And that was, I think that was the thing that was the undergird, you know, of that. Like I put all of this time and work into you.
I'll
Ain't
be
nobody
damned.
get you.
Yeah.
But even that's ego, Tanisha. That's ego
You've
again.
already lost that person.
Listen, for me, if you don't want to be,
you've already you know what, you lost yourself if that's where you're going.
That's right. But they have that. I'm sorry, go ahead. Hey, I'm gonna stop. Go ahead. Kelly said that.
Yeah, you know, I want to go back real quick to the whole polygamy thing and people being wired that way
and polyandry.
I'm
I'm serious about that.
not 100% sure that it's all a wiring thing, because if we started off the conversation saying that this society has been conditioned to be something other than polygamy, and then I'm thinking, so what about those who have strong desires to have multiple women but don't? They choose to still stick with that one person? Would that not be considered self-discipline?
It still is not. It still boils down to they have the desire, perhaps that's their wiring, but they chose monogamy. Like people choose monogamy every day. Just like how we make room for those people to choose monogamy, we also need to make room for people to choose the other one. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's all. But I was just coming back to the whole wire thing. I'm just not, in my mind, it doesn't click that some people are wired to have multiple women and others.
Are we wired? Are everyone wired to be monogamous? Do you feel that way then?
I think a lot of it boils down to what the decisions you decide to do. If you decide that you want to live a life with multiple women, then that is your choice. So if you decide you don't want to do that, then that's a choice. So I don't know if it's wiring though. For me, that doesn't click for me as a wiring.
Then what's the other choice?
What do you mean?
If they choose that, then what is the other option? And where does that other option come from?
I don't understand your point.
You're saying that if someone chooses to be monogamous, right? Right? They make a choice.
Right.
What is the other choice?
They may choose to have multiple women.
Where do those desires or those choices come from?
Like every other choices we all make in life.
No, so, where does the desire, like one desire might be stronger than the other. Someone might be like, I could honor monogamy. You know what I'm saying? Like me, I respect monogamy, right? I'm a monogamous person. Okay, let's just be clear. But if I meet someone who I've met people, men and women, I want to be very clear on that, where it's just like, no, I just choose to kind of be with this one person. But I have been in spaces where I've been able to deal with multiple people, not in any deceitful way. You get what I'm saying? Where there's conversation and everybody involved is aware. And I've had people say, and I just feel more myself in this space. Where does that feeling of more myself comes from is really what I'm asking.
Well, I don't know, because I just, again, it's going back to Tanisha's point earlier when she had mentioned how, I just lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Earlier she had said something. I lost my whole train of thought.
Well, can I speak to that real quick? You know what? When you was talking to Hanifa in this conversation, you're trying to figure out whether it's wired or natured or choice. It reminds me of how people have open marriages. Again, I think that's a prescription to this infidelity thing, or to address this thing that you're saying, Hanifa. Like some people feel that they want multiple partners, right? But they find, they choose to be disciplined, Al-Kamar, to be in a monogamous one. Well, at some point that's going to hit the fan, because that person is not really honoring, like it could be, you can say, okay, I commit to this, but there's still going to be a void if you know within yourself that you would prefer more than one person. It's going to show back up somehow, some way. And I think that again, why that communication piece is so very important. You know what I'm saying? Because a person can be dishonest, but they can only be dishonest but for so long. So if you have a consistent communication with this person, them lies gonna start showing up. They're gonna start coming to the surface, right? Mm-hmm. Whether the person is intending to be dishonest or be honest or not, that stuff is gonna start to come up.
Yeah.
You know, because if you in a relationship, somebody, and this has always been my point. If you know that you prefer a variety,
mm-hmm.
why in the world are you in a commitment with one person? You are supposed to be exclusive. Why did you even put yourself in that situation?
Because they want you.
There is no space for honesty. I don't
know.
Keep acting like this is not a fact. There is no space. There is not enough space for honesty. There's plenty of space for ownership. Plenty of space for ownership. But there's we have the conversations. The conversation in the beginning. You talk about the conversation in the mid. Sorry.
Go ahead. Keep going.
You talk about the conversation in the middle. You talk about the conversation in between. The key thing is honesty. And oftentimes people are not having, and by the way, sometimes people are telling you who they are, but because you want them, you are just going to make them out to be.
You're not going to
you want them to, you're not hearing it. And so then now when that person shows up as who they've been telling you they are, you hurt. And I'm just like, but they told you. So what I'm saying is not just about honesty. It's also about, are we creating spaces within our relationship, in our friendships, in our, just within people who are in proximity with us, our girlfriends, our family, are we creating those spaces for honesty? You can't just demand honesty, because if I demand honesty and I'm judgmental, I am not going to get honesty, because that person doesn't feel safe enough to even take their sweater off, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. So Kelly asked a good question. She says, does monogamy, polygamy have anything to do with upbringing or community?
I do. I believe so.
Oh, how come you know people who grew up in polygamous things and they choose the other way?
That's right.
So if it is wiring, I wonder if it's like somewhere back in your ancient times. Your
other life, your
great greats.
Your DNA thing.
Lifestyle.
Epigenetics. We always talk about epigenetics, y'all. It's probably in there somewhere.
But is it mostly?
Go ahead, Tanisha.
Is it mostly women, Hanifa, that you see choose different if they were reared in like a polygamous family and kind of choose different?
I
think a lot of that probably stems from maybe seeing how their mothers, plural, were treated in that, like, I don't want this for myself. I don't want to have to share my partner with someone else. I know a lot of times in those relationships, people talk about, it helps you work on, checking your jealousy and just all this stuff. And I'm just like, well, what the hell are you working on? Like, if I have
no company for that, though, you can do that with you and one other person. You can work
on that single. I can do that.
Yeah,
single.
Like,
help.
I think something that was probably meant to be a maybe sort of like a social, maybe, I don't know. I think now people use it as a way to say that they want to have multiple partners. And I keep telling people, hey, being in a polygamous type relationship, like, you have to be able to take care of.
Thank you.
And not just, and I'm a lot. So I wonder, like, my husband will say, I can't take another one, not even somebody like that's a quarter of you, because it's always something like, well, I don't, this is, what I'm like, it's always something. But I don't know that those relationships maybe go into the deep emotional trenches of people. I don't even see how that's how that's
Possible.
possible.
Mhm.
I really,
What do
really
you
don't.
mean? Break that down.
Okay, so in a sense of like, with everything that's going on, like, how does this one person, this one man, because kind of how we picture relationships or how we kind of peg them is that this person is supposed to fulfill you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If that's the truth, I don't see how a polygamous type relationship could get into the deep trenches. There won't be enough of you to fulfill all of us. Someone is going to get left out. Now, if you're saying, hey, I can feel some, your sister might feel some, your aunt might, other people in the community kind of help fill you, then I could see how that could work. But the way how we in Western society understand relationships, I don't see how that can work. Because even now, one-on-one partner, like, you go to marriage counseling now, they'll tell you, you got to find somebody else to fill your cup up. Your partner can't fill your cup by themselves. And that's not their job.
I was going to say that, Tanisha, that's the
That was
other
gonna be
side
my
of
point.
cheating that we don't talk about a lot. This expectation of that person to be your all. That contributes to cheating as well, because it is an illusion. It is an illusion to approach me to think that I'm going to be your all, brother. Okay?
I don't want that kind of
I'm
pressure.
busy out here trying to be my own all. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, and it's a struggle. So I don't know how you could have that expectation of me. Like, and so I think you brought up a very important point, the importance of community, because there are going to be things that I'm going to get out of my sisterhood with Oni and Alkema that my husband cannot give me.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Or something that I'm going to get from being around my family where they could pour into my cup that he's just unable to. But I think this idea of expecting someone to be 100% of what you need, it's a setup. It's a setup, and it's a burden that no one should have to carry. That shouldn't be laid on any person.
That's
and then
right.
also the attraction piece. I think when I talk about like honesty too, like people have this idea that they have to lie about being attracted to other people in front of each other, except unless it's a celebrity. Because some people would say in front of their stuff, "Oh, he fine because he's a celebrity, so we know we could get away with it."
He's unattainable.
But if it's his cousin David at the barbecue, okay, and you like in your mind, you like, well, David. That's as far as it's gonna go. You can't say to your partner, David is cute, because you feel like somehow, but why? Attraction is not cheating. Attraction is a part of our human experience, our nature.
But that's when you rely on your other outlets. So you come into our command about how fine David was.
No. I'm not saying you tell. No. I'm not saying you say right there on the spot at the barbecue with the food on the grill. Boom, David fine, standing over there over the grill in his Timberlands. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if it comes up where that person, and by the way, usually we know each other's types, right?
Right.
Not your significant other might be like, Algama, I be seeing you looking at my cousin. Now I'll put on this whole theatric thing. Are you crazy? No. Right, and then you gotta bring up all kind of crazy stuff. David don't even tie his shoe right. Like, why would I even be talking to like real stupid stuff? You know what I'm saying?
He needed a new pair of Timbs on.
Right. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Because that person already know. Because they don't peep your energy. They don't peep you watching him. Like, they don't know. So I don't know why we don't have space in our relationship. Like, he cute, but ain't nobody checking for him like that or something like that. We don't have the space.
Insecurities. I think that's what when we're not self-assured and we have insecurities, and other people pick up on that energy, and they know that if they be that brutally honest, that, you know what I'm saying, you're not going to be able to contain that information without probably blowing up or feeling some kind of way, or all that stuff. That's why that self-work, where that self-work comes, it's so valuable, because it's like when you understand, like you said, it's just a natural reaction for people to have human emotions when they see something that's attractive, when their eyes see something that's attractive out here. you know, and that you can't, you know, you're not as comfortable in your relationship to stress that, or the whole trusting factor come up. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, your significant other may not trust you enough to where that feeling is just that.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
So
guys,
you know,
I know that wait, Tanisha, I'm gonna let you go. I just wanted to get you guys to know we're a little bit over the time. So after Tanisha, if all of us could just go around and speak, maybe someone is listening and they're like going through something right now where there's some infidelity was involved, and maybe they're either contemplating leaving or going. I want each of us to like maybe say our last, you know, thoughts around whether someone should stay or not. But Tanisha, go ahead and then we could do that.
okay, so you know, I was just gonna say, Alchema, you know, you made that point about people not, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Okay, Hanifa.
That's okay.
You and Al, come on.
And it's something she said too. Oh, you know, okay, finding somebody else attractive. You know, I think a lot of that comes from society telling us that once you've picked your person, like this is the person that you want to be with, it is abnormal now for you to find other people attractive, because then attraction goes with desire, and that definitely is abnormal. We don't put things into perspective like, hey, you're always gonna find other people attractive. You're always gonna maybe desire people on some level. Like I always ask people, who be in your fantasies? Is it always your spouse? Because if it is, then I don't think you really be in it. You know what I mean?
with yourself.
Yeah, you know, so I think we need to kind of just normalize, like, hey, that stuff's normal, because you have men and women walking around thinking somebody else is pretty or attractive or whatever is abnormal. That is not. The opposite is. That's like saying the only baby that I could think is pretty is my own. That's not true. You're always gonna see, you know, beautiful babies, always.
And it brings on a sense of shame and dirtiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, and that's what's normal.
Yeah.
But you know what? But I know, honey, I know we're running out of time, but
no, go ahead, come on.
This brother, I was on his page and I promised him that I would bring this question up because he's put out a meme with it was a picture of a woman laying in bed and she was kind of like shunning her husband or significant other, like she didn't feel like it. And the caption was 2 weeks, after 2 weeks of not having sex, would you cheat? And the comments from the men, and you know, some of the men,
comments,
well, you know, they be all over the place. You know, some of the brothers is like 2 weeks, you know what I'm saying? Nah, that's why men be cheating. So, you know, let me you know, so I wanted to just for us to briefly address that scenario real quick, just in case he's watching. Should women have sex when they don't feel like it?
No.
To keep a man, in order to keep a man from cheating? Let's just put it that way.
My answer is no. And I'm so stern with that because I'm not silly. Nobody's getting on top of me and doing their business. This thing that we talk about, that sex it's more than just a physical thing. There's a serious energy exchange happening there. I mean, a thing that's happening on so many levels. And so if a woman lays with a man and she don't want to do it, she's giving him all of that. And it's toxic. So this idea that women have been taught, you got to figure out a way to muster up, because even if you don't feel like it, you know, men have to. See, this idea about men are this way and women are this way, some of that stuff we gotta discard that, because to Alchemar's point, there is a such thing as discipline. The sexual energy resides in the same place as the creative energy.
It's the same.
This is why reproduction happens, right? When you are doing that exchange, there's a creation happening there. So if your lady or your man does not want to have sex, that same sexual energy, that same energy can be used to create something else. Find something creative to do. Don't put nobody in no situation where they just got to lay there and they don't want to be there. There's an exchange happening. If you want to do that, you're going to end up getting all this toxic energy, and you're going to walk away with it, and it can potentially harm everybody involved.
I'll come out the question then becomes
Right.
how long? For how
After 2
long
weeks
shall
or
it?
so, you need to be having a conversation about that instead of putting
No,
somebody
I'm
in a
talking about when
situation
she
where
was
they're
talking
obligated.
about like the comment section. I'm sure like the 2 weeks is short, right? For us.
Mhm.
Everybody in the panel was looking like, what? But it's like 2 years for some people.
I got
right?
so
Yeah,
passionate.
I mean, I'm just being honest. You know, there are men who they've just sex is their thing. Sex is what they go to. Sex is what they go where they go when they're upset, when they need comfort. Like that's their consolation. Like all of that. There are women who are like that too. But it's for someone 2 weeks seems like probably feels like 2 years for them, you know. So when you talk about like someone not feeling like it, of course, for me, if it's like a prolonged, if that person was like really sexually active in the relationship and then suddenly that turns off, then there's definitely like something going on. Obviously, my thing is like you gotta know the person that you with, you know. If that switch just turns off, then you need to try to get to the bottom of why, like, hey, what's happening, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And have the conversation, and if they need to go and seek help, you know, counseling or whatever, then you need to have the patience. You know what I'm saying? And walk with them through that. That's, you know, that's it. But people have this idea that sex, like we go back to it again, like sex is the end all be all, like that's the end of the relationship. And I think that relationships are built on so much more than sex. Sex is important, but it's not the only thing that keeps a relationship glued, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to explore and experience with your partner some other ways of intimacy, right? There's so many ways to connect with your partner, you know what I'm saying, and so forth. And I'm so adamant about this because I remember being taught that, you know, all right, this certain bill need to be paid, or, you know, you need to get this tuition together. You know, you're gonna have to give them a little something. I hate that. I hate that concept, because what am I doing for somebody else that I'm not doing for myself? You understand what I'm saying? So sexually, this is not about me just offering myself to you. This is about you offering yourself to me and me offering to you. And if either one of us don't want to do that at the time, then it's going to be interrupted. And I don't think it's fair to the other person to put them in that way. How long? Again, if the communication is on point, it's not going to be 2 weeks before you start talking about what's really going on, so that now you have to go outside of your relationship and cheat. If 2 or 3 days pass and you put your bid in and nothing jumped off, you need to be having a conversation.
That's not enough to cheat on. I'm sorry.
That's
not like
it's
someone.
Not.
Yeah, someone losing like sexy desire, like that's just not enough to cheat on someone, in my opinion. I could see, now don't get me wrong, for some people I could see how that can end up happening, because like Tanisha was talking about earlier, it could be as simple as feeling that someone finds you desirable, and maybe your relationship, like because there's no sex happening or whatever, you're feeling less desired. You go out somewhere and someone starts talking about how fine it touches a part of you that haven't been touched in a very long time. And I'm talking about physical touch, right? I'm talking about energetically. That person is speaking to a part of you that haven't been spoken to in a while. Next thing you know, there's an exchange of numbers and there's some texting going on, right? So I'm not trying to say that I don't understand how that can happen, because someone might be feeling a little bit like open and not desired, and they go out into wherever and somebody roll up on them, and, you know, but it's just not enough to say you haven't slept with me in 2 weeks, or you haven't given me any in 2 weeks, so now I'm going to go out and cheat on someone. You're fickle. Like you might not be built for marriage.
What about 2 years though?
Oh God.
What happens in 2 weeks?
No.
Turn into 2 years.
Oh God.
So 2 years. 2 years we're dealing with. That sounds like a medical / deep emotional issue.
Emotional.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How do you get to 2 years and not having sex with your partner and ain't nobody talking about what's going on?
Right.
Oh, no. So let me I can speak I could speak to this personally. Okay.
Help us.
Please help us.
don't think for a moment that when a relationship is challenged with something like that, the parties aren't trying to actively work on it. You might not come to a solution right away, especially if it's with a man. There's a lot. I can't tell y'all the amount of ego that's involved with even going to the doctor the first time to say, hey, doc, I have an issue. You know what I mean? Like that could take months.
Yeah.
That could take like, I mean, it is soul crushing. Again, because in our society, we don't teach people to just be open, honest, and upfront. And there's nobody gonna I don't really hear men, aside from the little Cialis commercials or whatever, really actively, openly talking about erectile dysfunction.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's not something they talk about, because what they talk about is, you know, I'm packing, I do this, I do, and that's not the reality. You know what I mean? Like that's not the reality for everyone. And so there isn't room for different kinds of conversations to say, oh yeah, that's normal. Go do da 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 da, and then go see. Like that's, you know, that's normal. You know, or my sisters are much, much older than I am. And so I said to them, you guys are very tight-lipped about changes that happen with women. So I'm just waiting for y'all to tell me what's going on. I have about 5 or 6 sisters probably going through menopause right now. And so one of them say, yeah, just get ready for the vaginal dryness. I was like, what? What? I like, so women talk about those things a lot more than I think men do, that, you know, kind of leads to those issues. And so, yeah, he might put it off for several months and then you become, you know, like people actively try to, and there's so much shame connected to not having a blowing her back out kind of sex, like, you know what I mean? That is so much just like wrapped up in it that people can't have honest conversations at all. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, 2 years is a very long time. It's a very, very long time. And it's a very long time to be the one waiting to have sex. It's probably not long for the person who has the problem,
Right.
know that they have the problem and it can get fixed.
And you know what,
Or they're slow to fix it.
Sometimes too, like you're walking through the stuff that you don't even realize that months have passed because you're
Right.
trying to like walk through all of this other stuff. And then you look up and you're like, oh, we haven't had sex in 6 months because you've been kind of like in the trenches trying, like you said, trying to like figure things out. And that's why I keep going back to sex. We have to take sex from the center of our relationships. We really, really do. We've centered sex, and that's the problem, because the reality is that there's just so many bigger things, right, that need to be settled as far as making sure our relationships have longevity. Like,
I think to your point, Hanifa, because when sex becomes the center, I think that's a weak foundation, because it's like now when you're not having sex, it's
what
easier.
else is there?
It's nothing left. Right. So it's so quick for you to just walk out because nothing else. Thank
you. That's a good point. That's a good point, because you're like you just said, like that, like we're not having, like you just used the example for the 2 weeks. We're not having sex because your whole relationship is centered around sex. So now when sex is removed, you feel justified in cheating.
That's it.
And you feel justified because now you could say, well, this person refused me sex for 6 months.
That's right.
So now I'm justified in cheating. And I'm just like, we just even talk about, we haven't even gotten into how infidelity isn't even always about sex. Like we haven't even talked on that. You know, to where women get in their feelings where they see the other woman and they be like, "Was she ugly?
She don't even look good.
She don't even look good." And I'm just like, and the reason why you could say that is because you think that cheating is solely about sex, and it's not. But we ain't got the time to get into that. Right. But that's another part of that conversation that we haven't gotten into. So let's each go around and just speak. We can start with Alkama. Just like, you know, whether or not you feel it's a good enough reason, infidelity, to break up a home. Just say whether you feel and why or why not.
I mean, it would definitely be case by case. It would definitely be case by case. And I think that if you are dealing with a serial abuser, somebody who just, you know what I'm saying, decides that, you know, no, it don't matter how you feel. It don't matter that they can break your heart over and over and over again, and that they'll continue to lie and continue to go out there and do the same things over and over without taking your feelings into consideration when they do it. I think that's abuse. That goes into emotional abuse, and that's stressful, and stress kills. And you know, you be walking around with bags under your eyes, and then Lord knows if children are involved, what you're doing is you're teaching your children how to accept abuse in their own lives. So now you're laying the foundation for the next generation. So in that instance, I don't think it's a healthy scenario to hang around in that kind of energy. Now, if there's a mistake, and something happened, or some energies were redirected some other place, and you know what I'm saying, in an open, honest scenario, conversation can be had about it, and both parties are mature enough to forgive, really sincerely forgive, and move on from there. Then I don't think that, because it happens so much. It ain't like it's one of these isolated incidents. This is a regular, unfortunately, a regular scenario in our society. And so, I think we should, have to, look at it a little differently. So that's my take.
Tanisha?
So I would caution people, if you're faced with this situation, to take your time. You know what I mean? Don't make a rash decision. I know a lot of times when things like this happen, people are ready to separate within a month, or you know what I mean? I look at it this way. It probably took you longer than 6 months to decide to be in a relationship with this person, to be in a relationship, to then get married. So it's gonna take some time to get out or to continue. You know what I mean? You don't have to make a decision right away. You could just just rest and sit in it. That's my advice. And then as you go step by step, I think your answers for what will work for you, what is best for you, will come. And don't do it alone. Seek some help from the outside. Don't try to go through it alone. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It probably happened to your mom with your dad. So that would be my advice.
Thank you. Oni, you could go ahead.
Okay, yes. So I agree with both Tanisha and Alkamar. I think that, as I said in the beginning, that it's levels to it. And I think that that would, for me, determine whether or not I leave or stay. Some of those variables could be, what do I have invested? How committed am I to trying to salvage this? Is it anything to salvage? And I do agree with you, Alkamar, that if it's something that just happens all the time, and it's just how the person shows up, absolutely not. Yes, I'm exiting. I'm leaving the relationship, because that won't change. And the stress that it will cause everybody involved is just not healthy. And I'm interested in healthy relationships, however that looks. In the case that it may be a oops, people like to say maybe a oops or a one-time thing. Even that, if I stay, it would have to be under certain conditions, unfortunately. I would need to see how committed you are to finding out why you made that decision. It's not something that it's not work that I'm willing to do without your input. I will be supportive in supporting you to get to the bottom line, because I'm not a surface dweller. You know what I mean? So I know that there's not happenstance. I know that if you are doing something deceitful or being dishonest, that it has a root somewhere. And because I live my life like that already, that's what my approach would be if I stayed, right? If I were to advise anybody else, matters of the heart are different for everybody. So I can only, speak from my experience. I can't say to somebody else whether they should leave. or stay.
Mhm.
I can just know that for me, I'm at a place, emotional maturity at this point where I would be willing, you know what I'm saying, to fight or work to sustain my relationship. In the event that the person is willing to do that kind of work, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be doing our work. Bottom line.
For me, I would just, for me, I think I would take more of the approach, like Tanisha said, sit with it. Um, do not, what happens a lot specifically with women, we tend to run to the friends that we think that we know can relate. Such and such been through this, so I'm gonna run to that person. That's not always the best thing because they're filtering it oftentimes through their own experience and their own hurt. So I'm with that to where, yes, sit with it. You might need to step away. You might need to say, I can't see you right now. I can't be around you. So you might need to go stay with family for a little bit, whatever you need to do, but to actually get up and say, we are having a divorce, I would say sit with that for a while before you make that decision. Because what I find is that sometimes we make a lot of decisions up here when our emotions are really, really high, right? And we are not thinking with clarity when we do that, right? Especially with anger. I think I read somewhere when there's anger involved, the IQ drops. I read that somewhere and it made so much sense to me because we all know the stupid things we say and do when we're mad. And I was like, I can't remember by how many points they said, but yes, it was an article I read some years back. So I always remember that. Don't make any rash decisions. Don't make a decision when you are that, especially if it's so fresh. Give it time, sit with it. If that means you need to give yourself space, you and that person space to be able to sit with that, then do so. But definitely allow yourself to come off of the emotional high, right? And really sit with the hurt. Don't think that by quickly going and divorcing this person or separating from them, that somehow the hurt is going to dissipate. That's not how that works. So I would say for your own self, if you can, try to sit with that. If it's someone who is repeatedly cheating on you, they have a serious problem that you cannot fix. You are not equipped to fix it. You're not. You're not. And you have to know within yourself, because I know a lot of people leave relationships like that. Like Alcoma talk about serial cheaters, where people could leave and their sense of their self-esteem is affected tremendously because they leave the relationship thinking, maybe if I had looked a little better, or maybe if I, you know what I mean? And so my thing to someone who might be in the middle of that, don't. Someone who is a serial serial has
But that's
a serial cheater has a problem that's beyond you. They met you with that issue, and long after you're gone, they're still gonna have to deal with that issue. So it's not you. And so I would say if you need to go to therapy so that you can actually center yourself again, so you could get to that place of wellness, right? And knowing that you are enough and that you are not at fault for that person's habits, you need to do so. But if it's a relationship that you've invested time in, you have a family, and that happens, I would say definitely allow the emotions to kind of like settle like dust first before you make any rash decisions. That's all I got on that.
Yep.
Beautiful. Well said.
beautiful.
But then we had, I just want to get just real quick, I want to make Gregory had a point. He said, how come ain't no brothers in this combo? Talking about us when none of us contributing is wrong.
I spoke to that earlier. Somebody wanted that for Gregory because I sure spoke to it.
No,
Gregory came in later on.
he came in a little bit later.
I know.
The shout out and included them in the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm. We could do another one too, where it's just men.
Let's do it, Gregory. You gonna come on, or are you talking that talk, right? So
yes, Gregory, we're inviting you on in the next one where it's just going to be men. So get ready, get ready, brother.
I'm gonna be in the comment section though, Gregory. I'm gonna be in the comment section.
We're gonna let you know.
Because I'm always on the Empower Hour. I'm always on there.
All right, family, that has been a really good discussion. We definitely need to go part 2 because there's a lot more we can talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
Yes, it is.
I'm so grateful that you all continue to have these kind of conversations. We need these conversations, y'all. Thank you all so much, Alkama and Hanifa. Sister Tanisha, it was wonderful meeting you, making your acquaintance. And looking forward to the next time I get to bust it up with my sisters. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We always appreciate people that give us their time. Tanisha, we appreciate you giving us your time and allowing us to kind of pick from your, your brain. And your opinion. We really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and this was a really good conversation. We'll see if we can do part 2 with the men. So
that would be good. That would be good.
Tell us, inbox us. We need your voice. We actually did have. I reached out to a brother to come on, but he wasn't interested. But let's do the brothers platform next time, round 2. Don't forget to hit the chime. So you guys, it's not enough to just like our page, which we so appreciate. But you got to hit the chime button, the bell, so you can get a notification when we go live. We do it each and every Monday at 8 p.m. and share us family with others so we can all have these type of conversations together. All right, family, inbox us, fellas, if you want to come on to do the part 2. Until next time, take care of each other out there.
Peace and love, everybody.
Okay.